Chapter 39. The Duamu clan was indeed powerful. They had actually gathered so many experts. One had to know that among this batch of new disciples, there were only about 100 people who had reached the martial master realm. The four of them unleashed their full strength and charged towards Lu Ming and Feng Wu. Jiu. With a bird cry, Feng Wu also unleashed her bloodline. Her bloodline was actually the 5th level bloodline, Ice Soul Bird. Among this batch of new disciples, the 5th level bloodline was definitely the top bloodline. Kill! Feng Wu shouted and charged towards the other party. Lu Ming's figure flashed as he also charged forward. Clang! Clang! Immediately, the sound of weapons clashing and true chi exploding could be heard. The other party used one person to stall Feng Wu, while the other three worked together to deal with Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's aura was like a rainbow. His sword light was incomparably fast, and his true chi was unstoppable. In just a few moves, one of them was cut in half by Lu Ming's sword. In the midst of the bloody light, another sword pierced through the heart of another person. In front of Lu Ming, the 3 martial masters who were at the 1st level of the martial master realm were as weak as babies. They had no power to resist at all. In the end, only the Duanmu clan youth was left. Lu Ming, how could he be so strong? Didn't that old fellow Lu Yunxiong say that he was just a low-level martial warrior? That old fellow lied to us. The Duanmu clan youth roared in his heart. He no longer cared about the lightning leopard and ran away. However, in front of Lu Ming, how could he run away? He was directly pierced through by Lu Ming's sword from the back. At this moment, a miserable scream came from the other side. Another White Tiger Hall youth was killed by Feng Wu. A 5th level bloodline had a fighting strength that surpassed a 3rd level bloodline. But at this moment, Feng Wu's beautiful eyes flashed as she looked at Lu Ming in shock. 3 warriors of the same level are unable to resist him at all. Furthermore, he hasn't even unleashed his bloodline. It's truly shocking. No wonder Big Sister Mullins thinks so highly of him. Feng Wu pondered. At this moment, Lu Ming walked towards the lightning leopard. Wu! The lightning leopard was severely injured. It lay on the ground and stared at Lu Ming with a pair of black eyes filled with despair. This gaze caused Lu Ming's heart to skip a beat. He couldn't help but think back to the time when Lu Yao and Lu Yunxiong had robbed him of his bloodline. If this lightning leopard were to fall into the hands of the Duamu clan, its fate would definitely be very miserable. Lu Ming, how do you plan to deal with this lightning leopard cub? I suggest you take it out. This lightning leopard cub is very precious outside. Feng Wu suggested. Lu Ming laughed. Senior Sister Feng Wu, do you have any healing medicine and empty jade bottles? There is. Feng Wu nodded, and with a wave of his hand, 2 jade bottles appeared out of thin air. One was empty, and the other was filled with healing medicine and muscle regeneration and blood-staunching powder. Many thanks, Senior Sister Feng. Lu Ming smiled, took the jade bottle, and approached the lightning leopard. Roar! When the lightning leopard cub saw Lu Ming approaching, its white fur immediately stood up. It grinned and stared at Lu Ming fiercely. Kid, don't be nervous. I won't kill you, and I won't take you away. I only want a little of your blood, and I'll even help you heal. Lu Ming laughed, then moved his body and grabbed the lightning leopard cub's neck. The lightning leopard cub was already injured, and blood kept flowing out of its wounds. Lu Ming took the empty jade bottle and filled it with about half a bottle of lightning leopard's blood. Then, he kept the jade bottle and poured the muscle regeneration and blood-staunching powder on the lightning leopard's wounds. The muscle regeneration and blood-staunching powder was a top-notch healing product. When it was applied to the lightning leopard's wounds, the lightning leopard cub quickly stopped bleeding. Kid, let's go. Find a place to hide and heal your wounds. Don't be discovered by others again, Lu Ming said as he patted the lightning leopard cub's head. Woo! The lightning leopard cub whimpered as it looked at Lu Ming with its big black eyes, as though it was surprised that Lu Ming would let it go. At the side, Feng Wu was also a little surprised and said, Lu Ming, you really want to let it go? The value of a lightning leopard cub is not low. I still have to find the Duanmu clan to get the iron medallion. I don't have time to bring it along. Lu Ming laughed. Wu the lightning leopard cub suddenly ran to Lu Ming's feet and rubbed its head against Lu Ming's feet. Then, it ran to Feng Wu's feet and rubbed against Feng Wu's feet. What a spiritual demonic beasts! What a cute demonic beasts! Feng Wu exclaimed in admiration as his eyes began to shine. Wu Wu the lightning leopard cub whimpered a few more times, looked deeply at Lu Ming, then turned and ran out of the canyon. Lu Ming laughed, and then searched for the iron medallion S on the bodies of the few people. While he was at it, he quietly absorbed all of their blood essence. The blood essence of 5 martial artists at the first level of the martial master was extremely strong. As expected of a genius of the martial master realm, each of them has around 30 points. The iron medallion that was found made both Lu Ming and Feng Wu overjoyed. The 5 youths at the first level of the martial master had a total of 153 points. In the end, Feng Wu only wanted 50 points, and the other 83 points were all given to Lu Ming. After all, it was all thanks to Lu Ming this time. Otherwise, Feng Wu would definitely not be a match for the 5 of them at the first level of the martial master. Lu Ming was not courteous either. His goal was to get first place. Right now, Lu Ming already had a total of 124 points. Senior Sister Feng, wait for me for a moment. With that, Lu Ming sat cross-legged and began to refine the blood essence that he had just absorbed. The blood essence of the 5 first-level martial master was extremely large and was constantly being converted into true qi. Lu Ming's cultivation was rapidly increasing. A moment later, Lu Ming's body trembled slightly. Second-level martial master. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. In addition to Yuan Chang's, he had devoured the blood essence of 6 martial artists at the first level of the martial master realm, as well as the blood essence of some other martial artists in the martial soldier realm. Lu Ming's cultivation had once again broken through. However, his bloodline was still at the 3rd level and did not advance. Senior Sister Feng, let's go. Lu Ming stood up and said. Feng Wu looked at Lu Ming curiously. Lu Ming's breakthrough was very secretive, so Feng Wu did not notice it. She was only curious as to why Lu Ming suddenly sat down cross-legged to cultivate, and after cultivating for a while, he stood up again. But she didn't ask. Everyone had their own secrets, didn't they? The 2 of them left the canyon and continued to run deeper into the secluded night mountain range. The main force of the Duanmu family was still deeper in. An hour later, the 2 of them stopped under a big tree because there was a pattern carved on it. It was a vermilion bird carved on a big tree. It was very lifelike. What does this mean? Lu Ming asked. In the past hour, they had already seen this pattern 3 times. This is a unique symbol of our vermilion bird courtyard. Someone is gathering the disciples of the vermilion bird courtyard. Look, the direction the vermilion bird is pointing at is the direction of the gathering. Oh, so that's how it is. Lu Ming had just entered the vermilion bird courtyard, so he did not know anything about this. Unlike the geniuses of the other big cities, he had already done research on the mystic essence sword sect. I don't know what it is. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't use this method to gather disciples. Shall we go take a look? Feng Wu was somewhat puzzled as he said, All right. Lu Ming nodded. Chapter 40. When Lu Ming and Feng Wu followed the symbol of the vermilion bird diagram for more than 20 miles, the sun had already set. In front of them, clusters of bonfires appeared, jumping in the night. Shwa, shwa. Suddenly, several figures appeared and blocked the 2's path. Who are you people? This is the gathering place of my vermilion bird courtyard. Are you disciples of the vermilion bird courtyard? One of them asked. That's right. We are indeed disciples of the vermilion bird courtyard. My name is Feng Wu. Feng Wu said. Haha, so it's junior sister Feng Wu. Quickly invite her in. A laugh came from the bonfire in front of them. A young man walked over. This young man was tall and thin with long arms. His eyes flickered, giving off a dangerous feeling. In Kai, it's you. Seeing this young man, Feng Wu was slightly shocked. This person is In Kai? Lu Ming's eyes also flashed. Previously, when they had just started the trial, Lu Ming had asked Feng Wu for some information. In Kai was very famous. Amongst the newcomers of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, he was known as the #1 expert. It was said that he had awakened a 5th-level bloodline and had already cultivated to the 4th level of the martial master realm at the age of 17. Yin Kai's gaze swept past Lu Ming's body, but he did not pay much attention to him. In the end, he stopped at Feng Wu and said, "Junior sister Feng Wu, let's talk over there." Yin Kai brought Feng Wu and Lu Ming and walked towards one of the bonfires. In this place, there were 5 bonfires lit and nearly 50 people gathered. They were all disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Lu Ming and the others arrived at the bonfire. There were a total of 8 people. However, these 8 people all had extremely powerful auras. They were all experts of the martial master realm. There were even a few of them who had powerful auras that far surpassed ordinary 1st-level martial masters. These people looked at Feng Wu and nodded their heads. As for Lu Ming, none of them knew him, nor had they heard of his name before, so they naturally ignored him. "Senior brother Yin Kai, those vermilion bird diagrams were engraved by you, right?" Feng Wu asked. "That's right. I asked someone to engrave it." "Junior sister Feng Wu, I presume you guys came here because you saw the vermilion bird diagrams." Yin Kai said with a smile. Feng Wu nodded and said, "That's right. We did come here because we saw the vermilion bird diagram. We want to see what happened." "Senior martial brother Yin, why did you inscribe the vermilion bird portrait and gather all your fellow disciples?" "Junior sister Feng, I'm sure you know that there's an iron token worth 500 points this time." Yin Kai's eyes flashed. 500 points iron plate? Could it be that you've already found an iron plate worth 500 points? Feng Wu asked in shock. Even Lu Ming was shocked. It could be said that every expert wanted to obtain a 500-point iron plate, because as long as they could obtain this iron plate, they would very likely obtain the first place in this competition. This iron plate with 500 points was of utmost importance. Not bad. Yin Kai nodded his head and said, "Not only did our Vermilion Bird Hall discover it, even the White Tiger Hall, Azure Dragon Hall, and Black Tortoise Hall have discovered it. That's why I want to gather people. This time, this 500-point iron plate must not fall into the hands of the other 3 halls. Our Vermilion Bird Hall has not produced a newcomer king for 8 consecutive years." "Senior brother Yin, are you trying to get this iron plate with 500 points and become this year's newcomer king?" Feng Wu's eyes flashed. "Of course." At the side, a cold youth said, "This year's Vermilion Bird Hall, other than senior brother Yin Kai, who else has the qualifications to become the newcomer king?" Feng Wu curled his lips and asked, "Then do you know what kind of demon beast those 500 points are on?" "It's on a mutated black armored lizard. This black armored lizard is a 2nd-level 9th-level demon beast. If we were to fight it head-on, no one in our 4 great academies would be able to obtain this iron plate. Therefore, our 4 great academies have agreed that the black armored lizard likes to eat the silver-eyed rabbit. As long as we catch enough silver-eyed rabbit and put the bewitching powder into their bodies, we will be able to make the mutated black armored lizard fall into a deep sleep. At that time, the 4 great academies will rely on their own abilities to fight for the 500-point iron plate." "How is it, junior sister Feng? Stay and lend me a hand." Yin Kai said, "If I lend you a hand, how do you calculate the remuneration?" Lu Ming suddenly asked, "Reward? What reward?" Yin Kai said with a frown, "Since we're helping you, of course we need a reward. How about this? We'll help you obtain the 500-point iron plate and obtain the position of newcomer king. However, how about you give us the spirit condensing fruit for first place as a reward?" Lu Ming said. Lu Ming's main goal was the spirit condensing fruit. As long as he could obtain the spirit condensing fruit, what harm was there in helping Yin Kai? "You want the spirit condensing fruit?" Yin Kai's face darkened. "Brat, you don't know how to appreciate favors. Helping senior brother Yin become the newcomer king is the shared honor of our Vermilion Bird Hall. As long as you're a disciple of the Vermilion Bird Hall, you should unconditionally help." "How laughable," the cold youth said gloomily. This person's name was Yuan Lang, and he was a very famous genius among the newcomers of the Vermilion Bird Hall. His cultivation had reached the 3rd level of the martial master realm. "Hee," Lu Ming sneered. He finally knew why Yin Kai had carved the Vermilion Bird diagram and gathered the disciples of the Vermilion Bird Hall. He wanted others to work for him and help him obtain the position of newcomer king. However, Lu Ming did not have the habit of helping others for free. Furthermore, was Lu Ming familiar with them? Shared honor of the Vermilion Bird Hall? You really make it sound so dignified. Lu Ming looked at Yuan Lang with a mocking smile and said, "Since it's for the honor of the Vermilion Bird Hall, sure. When you obtain the 500-point iron plate, give it to me and let me become the newcomer king. It's also for the honor of the Vermilion Bird Hall." With that said, Yin Kai, Yuan Lang, and the rest's faces darkened. Yuan Lang even shouted, "Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of the position of newcomer king?" "Oh," Lu Ming sneered. He could not be bothered to waste his breath with them. He looked at Feng Wu and said, "Senior Sister Feng, do you plan to stay here, or I want to accompany you?" "I'm not interested either. Let's go," Feng Wu said as he turned around to leave with Lu Ming. "All of you, stop right there," Yuan Lang shouted loudly. Shua. With a flash of his figure, he blocked their path. "Inkai, what is the meaning of this?" Feng Wu's expression changed as he turned to look at Inkai. Inkai revealed a sinister smile and said, "This time, I must obtain first place. So, hand over all of your iron plate S." "Inkai, you..." Feng Wu's expression was extremely ugly. He never thought that Inkai would be so despicable. "It's fine if you don't want to contribute. Leave behind your iron plate S before you leave." Yuan Lang looked at Lu Ming with disdain. "I want to leave, and you want to stop me? Scram, a good dog doesn't block the way." Lu Ming shouted coldly, "Brat, you're really arrogant. However, even if you're arrogant, you have to have the ability to be arrogant. Let me see what kind of ability you have." Chapter 41. Lu Ming, be careful. Feng Wu's expression changed drastically. Yuan Lang's cultivation had reached the 3rd level of the Martial Master realm, and was not something a 1st-level Martial Master could compare to. She was afraid that Lu Ming would not be a match for him. Flame Dragon Fist. Lu Ming did not evade. Instead, he threw a punch. Bang! Lu Ming's fist and Yuan Lang's claw collided. Strength overflowed in all directions, and the two of them swayed as they retreated 3 steps. This move was evenly matched. The 3rd level of the Martial Master realm is indeed powerful. Lu Ming's eyes flashed as he pondered. In the Martial Master realm, the gap between each level was extremely large and extremely difficult to cross. It was not something that the Martial Warrior realm could compare to. In the past, when Lu Ming was at the 6th level of Martial Warrior, with the support of 3 Divine Meridians, his Battle Dragon True Chi was 2 times more condensed and powerful than ordinary True Chi. In addition to his exquisite martial arts techniques, he could cross 3 levels and fight with a 9th-level Martial Master. However, in the Martial Master realm, it was impossible to do so. The power of the 3 divine veins was rather obvious in the Martial Warrior realm. However, in the Martial Master realm, the power of the 3 divine veins did not seem to be of much use. The most important function of the divine veins was to reflect one's talent and potential, and not directly reflect one's strength. Therefore, Lu Ming was now a 2nd-level Martial Master. With the power of his vital energy, he could at most skip 1 level and fight with a 3rd-level Martial Master. Coupled with his superb martial arts techniques, it was not a problem for him to suppress or even kill a 3rd-level Martial Master. However, if he encountered a 4th-level Martial Master, it would be difficult. Of course, this was under the condition that Lu Ming's bloodline did not erupt. The two of them retreated at the same time, causing the surrounding people to be shocked. Feng Wu was overjoyed. He never thought that Lu Ming would actually be able to fight to a draw with Yuan Lang. Just how strong is this Lu Ming? He must have been hiding his strength all this time. Sister Mulin's even told me to protect him? I think he's the one protecting me. Feng Wu thought speechlessly. At the side, Yin Kai and the other's eyes flashed with shock. He had never heard of this Lu Ming before. Where did he come from? How could he have such a strong cultivation? Yuan Lang's eyes were incomparably gloomy, flashing with dense killing intent as he roared, "Lu Ming, take another move of mine. Goshawk's 18 claws." Sizzle. Yuan Lang placed his hands on his waist, and a pair of metal gloves appeared on his hands. In the next second, both of his claws clawed out consecutively. In the blink of an eye, 9 claw shadows appeared, covering 9 vital points on Lu Ming's body. Under the burst of true qi, the sharp metal gloves pierced the air, making an ear-piercing whistling sound. A yellow-grade high-grade martial skill. It's a pity that I haven't cultivated it to perfection. I only managed to break through to the 3rd level. Lu Ming sneered as he unsheathed his sword and used the flowing light sword technique. Sizzle. Sword lights flashed in the air as Lu Ming slashed out 12 times in one go. Ding! Ding! The long sword and the metal glove clashed continuously, and the two figures crossed each other in the air. Finally, the noise stopped abruptly, and the two figures separated. Puff! Suddenly, Yuan Lang's body swayed as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yuan Lang was defeated. On his chest, a wound appeared that went straight to his bones. If it wasn't for Lu Ming holding back a little at the critical moment, he would have died. Now you can scram. Lu Ming cast a nonchalant glance at Yuan Lang before he lifted his leg and walked forward. Clang! Clang! A series of weapons were unsheathed. Following that, a white-clothed woman shouted, Lu Ming, there are so many of us, and senior brother In Kai. Do you think you can escape? In Kai, what are you trying to do? Do you want to keep us here? Feng Wu said with an ugly expression. In Kai looked at Lu Ming with a gloomy face, but did not say anything. You can try and see if you can keep me here, but I can guarantee that the losses at that time are not something you can bear. Lu Ming held his sword in his hand. His gaze was calm, but it contained an unwavering fighting spirit. His cold voice caused one's heart to involuntarily turn cold. In Kai stared at Lu Ming for a while. A light flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly laughed. Ha ha, it's all a misunderstanding. Junior brother Lu Ming is indeed powerful. It has really broadened my horizons. I hope we can make friends in the future. Senior sister Feng, let's go. Lu Ming did not even look at In Kai as he turned and left. Lu Ming, I was careless this time. Next time, I will definitely return today's humiliation double. Yuan Lang's cold voice came from behind. Next time? You'd better hope that there won't be a next time. Lu Ming's indifferent voice came out, and then he disappeared into the forest with Feng Wu. Senior brother In, are we going to let them go just like that? After Lu Ming and Feng Wu left, the white-clothed woman asked In Kai. This Lu Ming is not weak, and right now, our main goal is to compete with the other 3 academies for the 500-point iron plate. We cannot lose any manpower. Once this trial is over, I have plenty of ways to deal with him. I will make him regret it. Looking in the direction Lu Ming and Feng Wu left, In Kai's eyes flashed with killing intent. 1,000 meters away. Junior brother Lu Ming, In Kai is a narrow-minded person. Since you've offended him today, I'm afraid he won't let you off so easily in the future. Feng Wu said worriedly. He better not come looking for trouble with me. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He did not take In Kai to heart. Feng Wu's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. Although she had known Lu Ming for a period of time, she realized that she could not see through Lu Ming at all. In her eyes, Lu Ming was unfathomable. Lu Ming, what do you plan to do next? Feng Wu asked. What should I do? I don't want to miss the 500-point iron plate. The corner of Lu Ming's mouth curled up into an inexplicable smile. Feng Wu stared and exclaimed, Don't tell me you want to snatch food from the tiger's mouth? Why not? Lu Ming smiled faintly. He then climbed up a big tree that was more than 20 meters tall and looked at In Kai and the group from afar. He wanted to follow In Kai and the others to seize the 500-point iron plate. This person is interesting. Feng Wu looked at Lu Ming, then climbed up the tree and sat on the branch. The darkness dissipated, and a wisp of white appeared on the horizon. In the distance, In Kai and the others extinguished the bonfire and began to head deeper into the secluded night mountain range. Lu Ming and Feng Wu followed far behind. After walking for more than 20 miles, In Kai and the others stopped at the foot of a huge mountain. At the foot of the mountain, there was a huge cave. It was pitch black inside and extremely creepy. In front of the cave, a group of people had already gathered. There were more than 100 people. The people from the White Tiger Hall and the Azure Dragon Hall have arrived. Feng Wu whispered to Lu Ming, and Lu Ming nodded. Lu Ming, if you make a move later, you must be careful of a few people. Feng Wu pointed to a young man wearing a white robe with green wood embroidered on his sleeves and a purple jade belt wrapped around his waist, and said, "This person is Duanmu Ju, the strongest among the newcomers of the White Tiger Hall." Then, he pointed to another young man wearing a green robe and said, "This person is called Huang Yu, the #1 expert among the new disciples of the Azure Dragon Hall." And Lu Ming gave a soft hum of acknowledgement. Chapter 42. Feng Wu couldn't help but snort lightly, her small mouth slightly curled up. Unexpectedly, Lu Ming suddenly leaned close to her ear and said, "You said so much. Are you so concerned about me?" Caught off guard, Feng Wu jumped in fright and almost cried out. Her small face flushed red as she glared fiercely at Lu Ming and said, "What nonsense are you spouting? Who cares about you? If it wasn't for Big Sister Mulin's instructions, if it wasn't for you saving me, I wouldn't have bothered with you." "Oh, so it's like that." Lu Ming clicked his tongue, then looked ahead. Whoosh! Feng Wu let out a light breath, but for some reason, his heart was beating nonstop. Not long after, another group of people came. They were the disciples of the Black Martial Arts Academy. The 4 great academies were all here. Lu Ming and Feng Wu held their breaths and looked ahead. A moment later, the disciples of the 4 great academies took out silver-eyed rabbits and placed them at the entrance of the cave. The disciples of the 4 great academies all scattered and retreated to the vicinity to hide. There were at least 50 silver-eyed rabbits, and all of them had bewitching powder in their bodies. The smell of the silver-eyed rabbit was emitted. CSI. A moment later, a giant lizard that was half a meter tall and more than 4 meters long crawled out. It was covered in black scales. This was the black armored lizard. However, it was clear that this black armored lizard was only an ordinary black armored lizard. It was equivalent to a second level 2 demon beast and not a mutated black armored lizard. As soon as the black armored lizard crawled out, it saw the silver-eyed rabbit outside and hurriedly rushed over. It swallowed a silver-eyed rabbit in one gulp and ate it with relish. CSI. At this time, another black armored lizard crawled out. It was also not a mutated black armored lizard. Following that, a few more black armored lizards crawled out and swallowed more than 10 silver-eyed rabbits in a few moments. The disciples of the 4 great academies were anxious. They had spent several days to catch the silver-eyed rabbit. If they were eaten up by these ordinary black armored lizards, then they wouldn't have a second chance. There were only 2 days left until the end of the trial. They didn't have the time to catch so many silver-eyed rabbits. Moreover, they didn't have enough bewitching powder on them. At this moment, roar! A loud roar came from the cave. Then, there was a bang 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 sound coming from the cave as a huge creature crawled out. This was also a black scale lizard, but its size was 10 times that of the others. Moreover, this black scale lizard's eyes were red. On the neck of this black scale lizard hung a metal plate with 2 large words written on it. 500. 500 points iron plate. Everyone's eyes were burning with excitement. Roar! The mutated black-scaled lizard let out a loud roar when it saw the silver-eyed rabbit. Hiss! The other black-scale lizards seemed to be very afraid, and one by one, they retreated. The mutated black-scaled lizard stepped forward alone and opened its bloody mouth. With one bite, 5 or 6 silver-eyed rabbits were swallowed into its mouth. A few minutes later, nearly 40 silver-eyed rabbits were all swallowed by the mutated black-scaled lizard. The variant black-scaled monitor lizard let out a roar, then turned around and slowly entered the cave. Hiss! At this moment, the black-scale lizards that had swallowed the silver-eyed rabbit earlier swayed and fell to the ground one by one, snoring loudly. The bewitching powder in their bodies had taken effect. The disciples of the 4 great academies were not in a hurry to chase into the cave. They were waiting for the medicine to take effect. The mutated black-scaled lizard was not as easy to deal with as an ordinary black-scaled lizard. After more than 10 minutes, the disciples of the 4 great academies all rushed into the cave. "Are we going in too?" After a few more minutes, Feng Wu asked Lu Ming, "I'm the one who's going in. Wait for me here." Lu Ming nodded and said, "It might be very chaotic at that time. If I'm alone, it'll be easier for me to escape." Feng Wu bit her lips. She knew that what Lu Ming said was the truth. All right, then you have to be careful, Fengwu said. Lu Ming nodded, then moved and rushed towards the cave. Outside the cave, there was a group of disciples from the 4 courtyards with low cultivation levels. However, none of them stopped Lu Ming. There were disciples of the 4 great academies, so who would stop him? Lu Ming dashed into the cave without a hitch. Inside the cave, it was dark. Even though Lu Ming was a martial master and his eyesight was much stronger than ordinary people, it was still dark in his eyes. Lu Ming restrained his breathing and carefully walked in. However, after walking for 100 meters, there were several forks in the road. Furthermore, he saw the corpse of a black-scaled lizard lying there. This was a level 1 black-scaled lizard. Lu Ming was not interested in absorbing its blood essence, so he chose a fork in the road and continued forward. This was the lair of the black-scaled lizard. It was connected in all directions and crisscrossed in a very complicated manner. After Lu Ming walked a few hundred meters forward, there were several forks in the road. Lu Ming continued to casually choose a fork in the road and walked inside. On the way, Lu Ming saw several black-scaled lizard corpses. 2 of them were at the first stage of Class 2, and 1 was at the second stage of Class 2. Lu Ming did not let them go and devoured all of their blood essence. As he walked, he refined the blood essence. Lu Ming's cultivation was rapidly improving. Obviously, the disciples of the 4 great academies had the advantage in numbers. He did not find any corpses along the way. Lu Ming walked like this for about 20 minutes. Along the way, he devoured 3 more Class 1 LV2 black-scaled lizards and 1 Class 2 LV2 black-scaled lizard. Lu Ming's cultivation had successfully advanced to the middle stage of the second stage of the martial master realm. At this moment, Lu Ming saw a faint light coming from ahead. Lu Ming lightened his footsteps and walked toward the light. When he walked closer, he realized that it was a cave entrance. It was not even as tall as a person. Lu Ming walked to the side of the cave entrance and looked outside. He was slightly shocked. Outside the cave entrance was a huge underground cave. It was more than 100 meters in length and width and dozens of meters in height. On the walls of the cave, there were stones that emitted a faint light. These were luminous stones. If the luminous components in these stones were extracted, they could be made into luminous stones that could illuminate the cave. With the help of the luminous stones, Lu Ming saw that there were many similar caves on the walls of the cave. In some of the caves, he could vaguely see human figures. Many people from the 4 great academies were hiding in these caves. Lu Ming's cave entrance was more than 10 meters above the ground. In the center of the cave, there was a huge monster lying there. It was the mutated black-scaled lizard. At this moment, the black-scaled lizard had not yet fallen asleep. It let out a low roar and opened its bloody mouth from time to time. No wonder the disciples of the 4 great academies did not make a move. They were all waiting for the mutated black-scaled lizard to fall asleep. The mutated black-scaled lizard was a Class 9 LV2 demonic beast, which was equivalent to a LV9 martial master realm expert. If a martial artist below the LV4 martial master realm was slapped, they would definitely die. Time passed slowly. After more than 10 minutes, the mutated black-scaled lizard's eyelids became heavier. It seemed that it was about to fall asleep, but it was not completely asleep. The resistance of the mutated black-scaled lizard was really terrifying. It could still hold on after eating so many silver-eyed rabbits. Whoosh! At this moment, a figure rushed out from a cave entrance like lightning and pounced on the neck of the black-scaled lizard. Kai. Chapter 43. Swoosh. Kai's speed was extremely fast. His bloodline was a level 5 Greenwing Nighthawk, and speed was his forte. Now that his bloodline was activated, he was as fast as lightning. No wonder he dared to attack the mutated black-scaled lizard before it was completely asleep. Kai's figure flashed a few times, and he was under the mutated black-scaled lizard's neck. He reached out and grabbed the iron token and pulled with all his might, breaking the iron chain that bound the iron token. Roar! The tearing force seemed to have caused the mutated black-scaled lizard to react. It let out a low roar, and a huge claw swiped at Kai. Kai's figure suddenly flashed, and he dodged the claw of the black-scaled lizard. The black-scaled lizard seemed to be even more dizzy after its claw missed. It let out a low roar and did not pursue. Haha, the 500 points are mine. This year's newcomer king is mine. Seeing that the black-scaled lizard did not pursue, Inkai was overjoyed and almost laughed out loud. Inkai, put down the iron token. At this moment, figures pounced out from the surrounding caves. They were all experts from the 4 campuses. Among them, Duamuju, Huangyu, Xiahong, and the top experts of the other 3 campuses were among them. It's in my hands, and you still want to take it away? Dream on. Inkai sneered. He waved his hands, and a pair of indistinct green wings could be seen flashing. Whoosh! A gust of wind stirred up, and Inkai's figure actually leaped more than 10 meters into the air, flying toward a cave that was more than 10 meters high. Inkai had already planned to use the advantage of his bloodline to seize the iron token, lure out the experts of the other 3 campuses, and then escape by jumping into a cave that was more than 10 meters high. Those caves were intricate and complicated. As long as he escaped into a cave, the others would not be able to catch up to him. His idea was good, but Lu Ming happened to be in this direction. Therefore, Lu Ming did not even think. He jumped down and slashed at Inkai. Lu Ming, it's you? Get out of my way. At the sight of Lu Ming's sudden appearance, Inkai roared in shock and swept his sword upward. Clang! The 2 swords clashed, and a burst of energy burst forth. Inkai was a 4th-stage martial master, and his strength was not to be underestimated. Lu Ming was sent flying by a strong force. However, Lu Ming was in a high position, and his strength was not weak either. Inkai was directly sent flying down. At this time, Duamuju, Huangyu, and the others had already arrived. Inkai, hand over the iron plate, or you'll die. Duamuju coldly snorted, his eyes filled with killing intent. A powerful attack was directed towards Inkai. Lu Ming, I'll fight you to the death. Inkai roared furiously. Save yourself first. Lu Ming landed at the side and smiled faintly. Hand over your iron token. Duamuju, Huangyu, and Xiahong were all at the 4th level of the Martial Master Realm. There were also a few other experts at the 3rd level of the Martial Master Realm. Inkai would not be able to keep the iron plate. All the attacks were aimed at the hand holding the iron metal. If he didn't let go, his hand would be crippled. Helpless, he could only let go. The iron metal is mine. Get lost. Huangyu, how dare you go against my Duanmu family? Duanmuju roared continuously. Duanmuju, don't use your Duanmu family to scare me. Others might be afraid of your Duanmu family, but I'm not. Huangyu sneered. Instantly, the scene fell into a chaotic battle. Everyone wanted the iron metal, and they fought with all their strength. True energy exploded, and the iron metal danced in the air. For a moment, no one managed to snatch it. Whoosh! At this time, Lu Ming suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air behind him. A powerful force attacked his back. Someone was ambushing him. Whoosh! At the critical moment, Lu Ming twisted his body and dodged the attack by a hair's breadth. Turning his head to look, Lu Ming's eyes flashed coldly. Yuan Lang, you're courting death. The one who ambushed him was Yuan Lang. You're the one who's going to die. I didn't activate my bloodline yesterday. Let's see if you're a match for me this time. Yuan Lang's murderous aura surged. Then, with a flash of blood-red light, his bloodline erupted, and he charged towards Lu Ming. Whoosh whoosh. The ice-cold iron claws brought about a strong gust of wind as they clawed towards Lu Ming. The power was stronger than yesterday. Lu Ming didn't waste time talking nonsense with him and executed the flowing light sword art. In an instant, more than 10 sword lights were slashed out. Clang, clang. Continuous clashing sounds could be heard. As soon as they exchanged blows, Yuan Lang's expression changed because he realized that the power released from Lu Ming's sword was stronger than yesterday. Could it be that in less than a day, Lu Ming's cultivation had broken through again? Impossible. Yuan Lang rejected this idea. Lu Ming must have hidden his strength yesterday. He began to think of retreating. However, Lu Ming's sword light trembled. Yuan Lang felt his arm go numb, and he took 2 steps back. Whoosh! An even more resplendent sword light erupted and pierced into Yuan Lang's stomach. Lu Ming, don't kill. Yuan Lang screamed in horror. I said yesterday that there won't be a second chance, Lu Ming said coldly. Then, he suddenly grabbed Yuan Lang's neck and threw him out. He was thrown in the direction where Duanmu Ju and the others were fighting for the iron tokens. That place was filled with sword lights. If he was thrown out like this, he would definitely be dismembered. Yun Lang screamed in horror. He had been hit by Lu Ming's sword, but he didn't die. In order to survive, he unleashed all his strength. A dazzling red light erupted from his body as he clawed out continuously. Get lost. Go to hell. Duanmu Ju and the others roared in anger and attacked without hesitation. Poochie. Almost instantly, Yuan Lang was dismembered. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere. However, Yuan Lang, who had risked his life, managed to block them for a moment. And what Lu Ming wanted was this moment. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming rushed out. The dragon snake steps erupted with the strongest power. With a single step, he was almost 7 feet away. Swish! Lu Ming was like a bolt of lightning, leaping over the battlefield where Duanmu Ju, Yin Kai, and the others were fighting. He grabbed the iron token with 500 points in his hand. Lu Ming, it's you again. Give me the iron token and I'll spare your life. Yin Kai roared. Lu Ming, I know you. You dared to kill my Duanmu family's disciples. Hand over the iron token, and I'll plead with the family elders to reduce your punishment. Duanmu Ju also roared. At the same time, several attacks were launched at Lu Ming. With so many experts, Lu Ming couldn't withstand them. He took another step forward and ran for 7 feet. This direction was where the variant black scaled lizard was lying on the ground. At this time, Lu Ming was only 10 feet away from the variant black scaled lizard. Behind him, Duanmu Ju, Yin Kai, and the others had surrounded Lu Ming. Lu Ming, you can't escape. You want to snatch the iron token? What a joke. Today, you must die. Yin Kai's eyes flickered with killing intent. If it wasn't for Lu Ming, he would have already gotten the iron token and left this place. Then, this year's newcomer king would be him. But now, everything had turned into bubbles because of Lu Ming. He hated Lu Ming to the bone. Lu Ming, give me the iron token and I'll spare your life. Huang Yu shouted. Chapter 44. At this moment, the mutated black-scaled lizard had already closed its eyes and was about to fall asleep. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for it to remain indifferent during the intense battle just now. There were no holes on the wall on the lizard's side. There seemed to be no way out here. Lu Ming, you have nowhere to go. Duanmu Ju and the rest slowly approached. If they weren't afraid of the mutated black-scaled lizard, they would have already attacked. Is that so? You're that confident? At this point, Lu Ming actually smiled. How could he still smile? However, Duanmu Ju, Yin Kai, and the rest immediately understood. Lu Ming suddenly turned around and charged towards the mutated black-scaled lizard. The sword light pierced through the air and ruthlessly pierced towards the lizard's body. Lu Ming, what are you doing? Stop. Quickly stop, you're courting death. Duanmu Ju and the rest's faces changed as they roared. However, Lu Ming's sword light did not stop. Poochie, the long sword ruthlessly pierced into the lizard's body. Roar. The long sword pierced its body. Under the intense pain, the mutated black-scaled lizard let out a roar and its eyes suddenly opened. Another sword. Lu Ming pulled out the long sword, causing blood to spurt out as he stabbed again. This time, the mutated black-scaled lizard was completely awake. It let out a furious roar and extended its huge claws towards Lu Ming. Using the dragon snake steps, he dodged the lizard's attack and then ran towards Duanmu Ju, Yin Kai, and the rest. Roar. The mutated black-scaled lizard roared and chased after Lu Ming in a frenzy. Lu Ming, Duanmu Ju, Yin Kai, and the rest all roared, but they could only helplessly turn around and run. The strongest among them was only a 4th-stage martial master. Even if they worked together, they wouldn't be able to kill the mutated black-scaled lizard. Why are you running? Didn't you want to kill me? Lu Ming's mocking voice rang out. This made Duanmu Ju and the rest so angry that they almost vomited blood. They secretly swore that they definitely wouldn't let Lu Ming off. Like birds startled by the twang of a bough, they no longer dared to stay in the cave. One by one, they ran into the caves. Ha ha ha, goodbye. Lu Ming stomped heavily on the ground and soared into the sky. He landed directly in a 10-meter-high cave entrance and then ran quickly. Lu Ming ran for over 1,000 meters in the cave before finally sitting down to rest. With a thought, the iron card appeared in Lu Ming's hand. This iron token was made of a different material than the others. It was dark gold in color and very hard. There were 2 golden words on it, 500. With these 500 points, in addition to the 124 points he had previously obtained, Lu Ming had a total of 624 points. Is 624 points enough? Lu Ming began to ponder. It was hard to say. Duamu Ju, Yin Kai, and the rest had gathered so many people. If some people only kept 10 points and gave the rest to them, it would be hard to say how many points they had. It was possible for them to gather 5 or 600 points. There are still 2 days left. Maybe I can get some points from the Duanmu clan or Yin Kai. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. At this moment, hurried footsteps could be heard from behind. They were extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, a few figures appeared in front of Lu Ming. Duanmu Ju. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. One of the 3 people was actually Duanmu Ju. The 2 beside him were genius disciples of the White Tiger Institute with a cultivation of the 3rd-layer martial master realm. Lu Ming, you're really here. Let's see how you're going to escape now. Seeing Lu Ming, Duanmu Ju wasn't surprised. He revealed a cold smile. How did you find me? Lu Ming asked curiously. Hee, I don't mind telling you. My bloodline is the spirit-sniffing hound. You won't be able to escape from me. A short young man beside Duanmu Ju said. So it's the nose of a dog. Lu Ming came to a realization. Lu Ming, I didn't look for you, but you actually dared to snatch my iron accumulative points card. You're really bold. Now, hand over your iron accumulative points card and I'll give you a quick death. Duanmu Ju said. Lu Ming curled his lips and said, Is everyone from the Duanmu clan so blindly confident? I really don't know how your Duanmu clan became the top clan of the White Tiger Institute. So you're not giving it to me? Then I'll show you how my Duanmu clan became the top clan of the White Tiger Institute. Flying Tiger Sword. Kill. After saying this, Duanmu Ju lunged at Lu Ming. A sword in tint was emitted, accompanied by the faint roar of a tiger. Clang. Lu Ming drew his sword and welcomed the attack. Clang. Clang. Their swords clashed. In this cave, the terrain was narrow, making it impossible to use movement techniques. One could only fight head-on. After a few clashes, Lu Ming felt his arm go numb and his body involuntarily took 3 steps back. As for Duanmu Ju, his body only swayed slightly. 4th-layer martial master. Such powerful strength. My current strength can't even compare to a 4th-layer martial master. Lu Ming thought to himself, Your swordsmanship is not bad, but your strength is too weak. Die. Flying tiger pounces on its prey. Duanmu Ju sneered and attacked Lu Ming again. Vaguely, it was like a fierce tiger pouncing at Lu Ming. Flying tiger sword technique, a high-grade yellow-rank sword technique. Duanmu Ju had already cultivated it to the 3rd level and his moves were fast and ruthless. I'm not a match for you in terms of strength. Then let's use speed. Lu Ming was highly focused and completely immersed in the flowing light sword technique. Swish swish, his speed was much faster than Duanmu Ju's. Duanmu Ju could only give up on attacking and try his best to block Lu Ming's swish. So what if your swordsmanship is fast? If your strength isn't enough, I'll beat you until you can't hold your sword. Duanmu Ju's sword danced like water couldn't splash through as he continuously clashed with Lu Ming's sword. Is that so? What if I'm faster? At this moment, Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. His sword moved, and his swordsmanship was actually faster than before. His sword was like a river as it continuously poured down on Duanmu Ju. Just a moment ago, his flowing light sword technique had a breakthrough. Previously, his flowing light sword technique had been stuck at the 4th level and hadn't broken through. Just a moment ago, in the battle with Duanmu Ju, his flowing light sword technique had broken through to the 5th level and reached perfection. Duanmu-ju's expression changed greatly. Just now, he could barely block it. Now, he realized that he couldn't block it at all. Swish! Lu Ming's sword broke through his defense and slashed towards his chest. Retreat! 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 Duanmu-ju was horrified and retreated frantically. However, he was still a step too late. PFFF, Lu Ming's sword gleam left a deep wound on his chest. Duanmu-ju broke out in cold sweat. If he didn't retreat quickly, he would be dead now. Attack! Attack together! Kill him! Duanmu-ju roared furiously. Kill! The other two youths charged towards Lu Ming together with Duanmu-ju. Chapter 45. Good timing. Lu Ming smiled in the face of the trio's joint attack. Instead of retreating, he charged towards the trio like the wind. You're courting death. Go to hell. The trio shouted coldly and executed their ultimate moves. Their long swords released sword chi that tore through the air and let out ear-piercing screeches. The sword chi enveloped Lu Ming's body. At this moment, a bloody light flashed on Lu Ming's body as his bloodline erupted. He twisted his body and dodged the three swords. As for the sword chi, he didn't care about it at all. Die! Duanmu-ju and the other two revealed cold-killing intent in their eyes. Duanmu-ju even revealed a smug smile as if the 500 points iron token was already in his hands. But in the next moment, his expression changed. Because he felt that after the sword chi landed on Lu Ming's body, it was as if it slashed into an endless abyss. In an instant, his hair stood on end as a cold-killing intent enveloped his body. Retreat! Retreat quickly! He roared in his heart. However, it was all too late. A beam of sword light appeared like a flying immortal and pierced through his throat. Blood splattered everywhere as Duanmu-ju let out a beast-like roar. He covered his throat with both hands and kept retreating. But after a few steps, he fell to the ground. Lu Ming pierced through Duanmu-ju and took the opportunity to draw his sword and cut the throat of another youth. In an instant, Lu Ming made use of the special characteristics of his bloodline and successfully killed two experts. There was only one person left. The last youth was scared out of his wits and retreated frantically. But how could he be as fast as Lu Ming? Lu Ming caught up in a few steps. After a few moves, he followed in Duanmu-ju's footsteps. Duanmu-ju and the other two were all killed by Lu Ming. This time, I'm not injured. It's much better than the previous time. Lu Ming felt his body and thought to himself. Duanmu-ju and the other two sword chi was absorbed by Lu Ming's bloodline. The remaining 50% was mostly blocked by his protective chi. Hence, Lu Ming wasn't injured. Of course, this was related to the cultivation of Duanmu-ju and the other two. Duanmu-ju's cultivation was at the 4th level martial master realm, which was only 2 levels higher than Lu Ming. If he was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming, or even 4 or 5 levels higher, then the result would be different. Although he could also devour 50% of the attack power, the remaining 50% was enough to seriously injure or even kill Lu Ming. Let's see how many iron tokens Duanmu-ju has found. Lu Ming searched Duanmu-ju's body, but he didn't find a single iron token. Not to mention an iron token, he didn't even have one silver. What's going on? How could Duanmu-ju not have a single iron token? No, it's a storage ring. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. Looking at Duanmu-ju's finger, he indeed saw a ring. After taking off the ring, Lu Ming's mind sank into the ring. In the next moment, a space appeared in Lu Ming's mind. This space wasn't big, only about 1 square meter in size. It was much smaller than the Temple of Paragon. This was the space inside the storage ring. In this space, there was a pile of iron tokens, a stack of silver notes, and some clothes. Lu Ming did not count them, and then found a stack of iron tokens on the other two people's bodies. Together with the storage ring, he kept them all in the Temple of Paragon, and then swallowed the blood essence of the 3 people. Not long after, he saw the exit of the cave. There was still a large group of people guarding there, but Ying Kai, Huang Yu and the rest had not come out yet. Lu Ming immediately rushed out and climbed up a big tree nearby. He did not go look for Feng Wu first. He planned to first refine the blood essence of Duanmu-ju and the other two, count his gains, and then meet up with Feng Wu. Sitting cross-legged in the middle of the branches of the big tree, Lu Ming began to refine it. A 4th-level martial master and 2 3rd-level martial master. The energy contained in the blood essence was extremely large and was definitely not something that a 1st or 2nd-level martial master could compare to. Lu Ming's cultivation was rapidly increasing. Peak of the 2nd-level martial master, late 2nd-level martial master, and finally, after refining all of the blood essence, Lu Ming broke through and stepped into the 3rd-level martial master. However, the level of his bloodline still did not increase. On the spirit-devouring insect's bloodline, the 3 blood-red chakras were incomparably deep. It was obvious that they had reached their limit, but they still did not advance to the 4th level of bloodline. Could it be that my bloodline can only reach the 3rd level? Lu Ming frowned as he thought. Whatever, if I continue to devour blood essence in the future, I don't believe that I can't advance. Following that, Lu Ming took out Duanmu Ju's storage ring and began to count. The 2 3rd-level martial master youths had a total of 130 points. But the one with the most points was Duanmu Ju, who had actually reached a terrifying 520 points. As expected, with so many people gathered around Duanmu Ju, the number of points he had was absolutely terrifying. He had actually exceeded 500 points. With this, Lu Ming's points had reached a terrifying 1224 points. With this kind of points, first place should be secured, right? Lu Ming did not believe that anyone else could surpass this score. In addition, there were more than 80,000 silver notes in Duanmu Ju's storage ring. It was truly an unexpected gain. Duanmu Ju was indeed worthy of being a genius of the Duanmu family. Not to mention anything else, just a storage ring was worth at least 100,000 silver taels. Furthermore, there was no market for it. Now, it was all thanks to Lu Ming. After counting, Lu Ming's figure flashed as he arrived at the place where he had agreed to meet Feng Wu. Lu Ming, you're out? How's the situation? When Feng Wu saw Lu Ming, he immediately asked. Very good. Lu Ming smiled slightly. Feng Wu's beautiful eyes lit up and said, Lu Ming, could it be that the 500-point iron plate has fallen into your hands? Of course, otherwise wouldn't I have come here for nothing? Lu Ming smiled, full of confidence. You really got the 500-point iron plate. Looks like Yin Kai, Duanmu Ju, and the others have all made a wedding dress for you. Feng Wu sighed. Looking at Lu Ming, his eyes were filled with surprise. Let's go. The two of them turned around and left, disappearing into the forest. Very quickly, 2 days passed in a flash. The 20 days of the trial were up. Many people had gathered outside the secluded Night Mountain Range. Xia Kuang and the other elders of the 4 great academies, as well as a few silver-robed elders, as well as the deacons of the various academies who were in charge of counting the points. Other than these people, there were also quite a few youths gathered. These youths were all old disciples of the 4 great academies. Every year, the new disciples would receive a lot of attention, because the new disciples represented the future and also represented unlimited possibilities. In your opinion, how many people will pass this year? The elder of the 4 great academies stood at the front, and at this moment, the elder of the White Tiger Academy asked the other 3. Chapter 46. The total score is 13,000 points. In theory, there should be 1,300 people who pass, but in reality, it's impossible for so many people to pass. The elder of the Azure Dragon Institute said, there will definitely be some iron tokens that haven't been found yet. Also, there will definitely be some people with higher scores and some people with less than 10 points. Therefore, I estimate that 500 people will pass. That's not bad. I estimate that there will be around 500 people. Xia Kuang nodded. According to past experience, that's about it. But I'm very curious, who will be this year's newcomer king? The Black Tortoise Academy's elder said, and then asked a question. Needless to say, this year's newcomer king will definitely be my Duanmu family's genius, Duanmu Ju. Duanmu Jin chuckled, looking very confident. Duanmu Jin, aren't you too confident? My Azure Dragon Hall's Huang Yu has extraordinary talent. He has awakened a 5th-level bloodline and has already reached the 4th level of the Martial Master realm. He is not inferior to Duanmu Ju at all. In my opinion, The newcomer king this time will definitely be Huang Yu. The Azure Dragon Hall's elder said, although my Black Tortoise Academy's Xie Hong is a woman, her talent is not bad at all. Perhaps, the newcomer king will be my Black Tortoise Academy's Xie Hong. The Black Tortoise Academy's elder said, I don't think so. My Vermilion Bird Hall's Yin Kai is not bad either. This time, my Vermilion Bird Hall will definitely obtain the position of newcomer king. Xie Huang said. Duanmu Jian patted his fat belly and said confidently, although Huang Yu and the others are not bad, they are still inferior to Duanmu Ju. Also, Xie Huang, your Vermilion Bird Hall hasn't obtained the title of newcomer king for 8 years. This time, it's impossible. Stop dreaming. Xie Huang's face darkened and said, Fatty Duanmu, what do you mean by this? Are you looking down on my Vermilion Bird Hall or something? Yes, so what if I look down on your Vermilion Bird Hall? It's impossible for those trash from your Vermilion Bird Hall to obtain the title of newcomer king. If you're not convinced, how about we make a bet? Duanmu Jin said with a mocking expression. Damn it, let's bet. I'm not afraid of you. Fatty Duanmu Jin, how do you want to bet? Xie Huang said. Duanmu Jin's eyes flickered as he wore an excited smile and said, how about this? Let's bet on whether the White Tiger Hall or the Vermilion Bird Hall will be crowned the newcomer king. The bet will be 30 spiritual crystals. What do you think? What? 30 crystals? Xie Huang was shocked. Spiritual crystals contained an incomparably pure spiritual qi. They were condensed from the heavens and earth and were incomparably precious. Only martial grandmasters and above could use them to cultivate. In the market, one spiritual crystal could be sold for 10,000 taels of silver. 30 spiritual crystals were equivalent to 300,000 taels of silver. 30 spiritual crystals for a single bet. What a big bet. What? Xie Huang, you don't dare to bet with 30 spirit crystals? Duanmu Jin revealed a contemptuous smile. Damn it. Xie Huang clenched his teeth and said, Duanmu Jin, I'll take the bet. When the time comes, no one can go back on their word. I was afraid that you would go back on your word. Duanmu Jin sneered. A disciple has come out. At this time, the elder of the Azure Dragon Institute spoke. Sure enough, several young people walked out from the secluded Night Mountain range. It's the disciples of the Vermilion Bird Institute. They came out quite quickly. I wonder how many points they got. Duanmu Jin smiled contemptuously. Xie Huang's face darkened. He then looked at the young people and said, how many points did you get? Take it out and record it. No, not much. A young man's face was a little red. In the end, he took out 2 one-point iron tokens. As for the others, they didn't even have one. Obviously, all their gains were these 2 points. Ha ha ha, only 2 points. Your Vermilion Bird Institute has a big harvest. Duanmu Jin laughed loudly. The elder of imparting arts from the other 2 courtyards also smiled. The competition between the 4 institutes was fierce. The worse the other institutes were, the happier they were. Xie Huang's face was gloomy. Since these young people came out, more and more young people came out. Of course, there were very few who could pass. Only 1 out of 10 people could pass. Those who didn't pass were all dejected. Those who passed were in high spirits. The number of people who passed was naturally the White Tiger Institute. They were ranked first. The Azure Dragon Institute was ranked second. The Black Tortoise Institute was ranked third. The Vermilion Bird Institute was ranked last, just like in the past few years. This made Duanmu Jin laugh even more heartily. Xie Huang's face became uglier and uglier. Look, Xie Hong is out. Suddenly, someone shouted. The number 1 expert of the Black Tortoise Institute, Xie Hong, walked out of the secluded Night Mountain range. However, Xie Hong's face didn't look good. She looked a little gloomy. Hee, it seems that martial nephew Xie Hong's results aren't very ideal. Seeing Xie Hong's expression, Duanmu Jin chuckled. The face of the elder of the Black Tortoise Institute sank. 509 points. In the end, Xie Hong's score was 509 points. 509 points is already not bad. However, without that 500-point iron token, it's very difficult to get first place with this score. The elder of the Azure Dragon Institute said, that's not necessarily true. If no one gets the 500-point iron token this time, then Ers 509 points might be able to get first place. The elder of the Black Tortoise Institute said unwillingly. This time, the 500-point iron token has been obtained. Xiahong suddenly said. What? Who got the 500-point iron token? The four Gillam parting elders were shocked and asked hastily. Whoever obtained the 500-point iron token could be first place. Naturally, they would pay attention to it. Xiahong shook her head and didn't answer. Although it had been obtained by Lu Ming, Duamuju, Yin Kai, Huang Yu and the others had been tracking Lu Ming with all their might. A few days had passed, and she didn't know who had obtained the 500-point iron token. The eyes of the elders flickered. They all hoped that the 500-point iron token would be in the hands of their own geniuses. The senior disciples nearby were also discussing spiritedly, guessing who would be the first. Yin Kai is out. And Huang Yu. Someone called out. Xia Kuang's heart skipped a beat as he hurriedly looked over. Yin Kai and Huang Yu each led a group of people out of the forest. Yin Kai, you should count them first. Huang Yu looked at Yin Kai and said. Yin Kai's face was extremely gloomy. With a wave of his hand, a pile of iron tokens appeared. Although storage rings were precious and rare, geniuses like Yin Kai still had them. 496 points. Yin Kai's score was 496 points, which was even less than Xiahong's. Haha, Xia Kuang. It seems that your 30 spirit crystals are bound to lose. Yin Kai's score is even less than Xiahong's. It's impossible for him to get first place. Duanmu Jin laughed loudly. Duanmu Jin, don't be happy too early. Although Yin Kai can't win, Duanmu Ju might not be able to get first place either. Xia Kuang said, Is that so? Anyway, I'm in an invincible position. Even if Duanmu Ju doesn't get first place, I won't lose anyway. Duanmu Jin sneered. At this moment, Yin Kai's expression was extremely ugly. Lu Ming, I hope your 500-point iron token has been taken away by Duanmu Ju. Yin Kai roared in his heart. He would rather Duanmu Ju get first place than Lu Ming. Chapter 47. When Lu Ming and Feng Wu walked out, they did not attract anyone's attention. The four great courtyards elder of martial arts, as well as those old disciples, only took a casual glance and directly skipped over them. 3 of the 4 great courtyards #1 geniuses had already appeared, and they wanted to see Duanmu Ju. However, a small portion of people's gazes landed on Lu Ming. They were the people who had participated in the fight for the 500-point iron plate. Especially Yin Kai. His eyes were extremely gloomy. Lu Ming, you're not dead? Could it be that Duanmu Ju didn't find you? Yin Kai stared at Lu Ming and said, Yin Kai's words caused everyone to be stunned. Hearing Yin Kai's tone, could it be that this young man called Lu Ming was a top figure? What is it? Are you disappointed that I didn't die? Lu Ming's mouth revealed a mocking smile. Lu Ming, since Duanmu Ju did not find you, then it seems that the 500-point iron plate is still with you? At the side, Huang Yu asked in a deep voice. What? When Huang Yu said this, everyone was shocked. One by one, they looked at Lu Ming in confusion. Especially the 4 elder of martial arts of the 4 great courtyard. It was even more so. Who was this Lu Ming? They had never heard of him before. The 500-point iron plate was actually with him? How was this possible? Many people revealed expressions of disbelief. Of course. Didn't you see it with your own eyes last time? Lu Ming smiled slightly, then with a move of his hand, a purplish gold iron plate appeared in his hand. It was the 500-point iron plate. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on the iron plate in Lu Ming's hand. Was it really a 500-point iron plate? Who exactly was this Lu Ming? To actually be able to obtain a 500-point iron plate, then the newcomer king this time, would he be? One after another, shocked gazes looked at Lu Ming as they discussed amongst themselves. Ha ha ha, good. Lu Ming, good job. Xia Kuang reacted and laughed out loud. He was happy. Originally, when he saw that Yin Kai only had around 400 points, he thought that the Vermilion Bird Courtyard had no chance of becoming the newcomer king this time. At that time, not only would he lose 30 spirit crystals to Duanmu Jin, but he would also be ridiculed by Duanmu Jin. But now that Lu Ming had obtained 500 points, There was hope for him to become the best newcomer king. Lu Ming. It's actually that Lu Ming. My Duanmu clan has so many experts, yet they were unable to kill this Lu Ming? Duanmu Jin was the most shocked. He looked at Lu Ming in disbelief. After a while, he recovered and sneered. Xie Kuang, what are you so proud of? Maybe this Lu Ming just got lucky and got a 500-point iron plate. He didn't get many other iron plates. Do you think you can win with just a 500-point iron plate? We'll know the answer after we count them, Xie Kuang said. Lu Ming, do you think you can beat me just because you have a 500-point iron plate? Watch carefully. At this moment, Huang Yu said coldly. Then, he turned around and waved his hand. A large pile of iron tokens landed on the counting table. So many people's eyes narrowed. Judging by the number, Huang Yu had more iron tokens than Xie Hong. 706 points. In the end, Huang Yu's points reached a terrifying 706 points. Hiss! The sound of people gasping could be heard. Huang Yu actually got 706 points. That's terrifying. Without a 500-point iron plate, he actually got such a score. It's hard to say who will be the best newcomer king now. That's right. This Lu Ming was not well known before. He's definitely not a disciple of a big family. There won't be many people helping him collect points. It's very difficult for him to get more than 200 points alone. Sounds of discussion could be heard all around. Good. The Azure Dragon Institute's elder laughed happily. Hee. Duanmu Jin sneered and said, Xie Kuang, I told you that you're happy too early. So what if you got a 500-point iron plate? If you're lucky and a trash gets it, he won't be the best newcomer king either. Humph, let's count them first. Xie Kuang snorted coldly, but in reality, he was not confident in his heart. He still had some idea about the situation of the new disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, but he had never heard of Lu Ming's name before. Lu Ming looked at all of this indifferently. His expression was extremely calm, and the corner of his mouth held a faint smile. He walked to the front of the counting platform, looked at Huang Yu and said, Since you want to see, then watch carefully. With a wave of his hand, a large pile of iron plates appeared on the counting platform. Judging from the volume, it seemed to be even more than Huang Yu's. This? So many? Everyone's eyes widened and they almost bit their tongues. They all stared blankly at the iron plate on the counting platform. Even Feng Wu was the same. She had always been by Lu Ming's side, but she never thought that Lu Ming would actually obtain so many iron plates. When did he get it? Martial uncle, please help me count them. Lu Ming reminded the deacon who was counting the points, because the deacon was still in a daze. After Lu Ming's reminder, the deacon finally reacted. 724 points. Adding the 500 points on the iron plate, a total of 1224 points. This was Lu Ming's total score. In the last 2 days, Lu Ming did not go looking for the iron plate. Instead, he had been cultivating and consolidating his cultivation. 1,224 points. This number made everyone's jaws drop. They stood there in a daze, unable to close their mouths for a long time. This was too terrifying. Even without the 500 points on the iron plate, Lu Ming's points were still above Huang Yu's. The Rookie King had been born. There was no longer any suspense about this point. How is this possible? How could this be? I mobilized a few hundred people from the Azure Dragon House, and even promised to spend a lot of money to purchase these points from some people. How did Lu Ming manage to obtain so many points? Huang Yu looked at all of this in disbelief as he roared in his heart. Damn it! Yin Kai clenched his fists, full of unwillingness. Ha, Duanmu Jin. I have already told you to wait until the counting is over. Look, the situation is clear now. Xie Kuang was incomparably excited as he laughed loudly. One of his hands kept grabbing his beard. When he looked at Lu Ming, he suddenly felt that Lu Ming was so cute. Xie Kuang, Lu Ming. Duanmu Jin gritted his teeth and his face was incomparably ugly. Also, Duanmu Jin, the bet is 30 spirit crystals. Quickly hand it over. Xie Kuang said, Why are you in such a hurry? Now that everyone has not come out, my Duanmu family's Duanmu Ju has not come out, how do you know that Lu Ming will win? Duanmu Jin said unwillingly. He hoped that Duanmu Ju could create a miracle. Elder Jean, this is bad. At this moment, a few shouts suddenly came from the secluded night mountain range. More than a dozen figures rushed out. These people were the young geniuses of the Duanmu family. What's going on? Why are you in such a hurry? As a member of the Duanmu family and a disciple of the mystic essence sword sect, you have to be calm. Do you understand? Chapter 48. Elder Jean, this is bad. Duanmu Ju is dead. A young man from the Duanmu family said in fear. What? Duanmu Jin's eyes widened, and his face changed as he cried out in shock. How could he remain calm? Everyone else's faces changed as well. Even the expressions of the elders of the other three schools changed slightly. Xia Kuang's face revealed a hint of joy. Duanmu Ju was dead? How did he die? Among them, Yin Kai, Huang Yu, and the rest could not help but glance at Lu Ming. Where did Lu Ming get so many points from? He couldn't have gotten so many points by hunting beasts alone. Could it be Duanmu Ju's? Speak. How did Duanmu Ju die? Duanmu Jin shouted with a gloomy face. His throat was slit by a sword. A young man said, Slit by a sword? Who killed him? Duanmu Jin exuded a cold killing intent as he asked. I don't know. When we found Duanmu Ju, he was already dead. There were also 2 third-level martial master disciples from the White Tiger Hall who died with him. What? You don't know who it was? Duanmu Jin's eyes flickered with killing intent as he turned around and looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, speak. Did you kill Duanmu Ju? Duanmu Jin, what do you mean? Before Lu Ming could answer, Xia Kuang's expression changed and he stepped forward. Lu Ming smiled and said, Elder Duanmu, which eye of yours saw me kill Duanmu Ju? You also heard that there were 2 third-level martial master experts beside Duanmu Ju. Do you think I can kill him? Many people fell into deep thought when they heard this. That's right. How could Lu Ming kill Duanmu Ju and 2 third-level martial master experts? Impossible. Duanmu Jin sneered and said, How do you explain that you have so many points on you? I'm sure that you must have used some despicable method to kill Duanmu Ju. What a despicable and shameless person. I'll cripple you now. Bang. Then, Duanmu Jin took a step forward, and a huge aura soared from his body. It was like a mountain, and it pressed down on Lu Ming. This pressure was too strong. Lu Ming felt as if he had been hit by a mountain. His body trembled violently as he retreated, almost coughing up a mouthful of blood. Duanmu Jin, what are you doing? Xia Kuang roared. He took a step forward and stood in front of Lu Ming. Similarly, a powerful aura gushed out from him and blocked Duanmu Jin's aura. Xia Kuang, scram. Duanmu Jin roared. Fatty Duanmu, is your fucking brain full of fat? In the Mystic Essence Sword Sex trial, the winner was always the king. What rule did they have to explain the origin of the Iron Token? What the fuck have you been doing for so many years? Lu Ming wasn't the type to suffer a loss. At this moment, anger welled up in his heart, and he cursed loudly. Everyone's mouths were wide open. This Lu Ming was too bold. He actually dared to curse Duanmu Jin in front of everyone. Sure enough, Duanmu Jin was trembling with anger. He raised his trembling arm and pointed at Lu Ming, saying, Little bastard. What did you say? So your ears are also bad. What the fuck have you been doing for so long? Lu Ming curled his lips. I'll kill you, little bastard. Duanmu Jin's eyes were red, and he threw out a palm attack. Stop right there. Xia Kuang threw out a punch and blocked Duanmu Jin's palm attack. Boom. A strong wind blew, and both of them were pushed back. Xia Kuang, scram. Otherwise, I'll kill you too. Duanmu Jin shouted. I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Xia Kuang didn't give in. Boom. At this moment, a strong pressure suddenly pressed down from the sky. This pressure was as deep as the sea. Xia Kuang and Duanmu Jin's bodies shook violently, and they couldn't move at all. Silver-robed elder. Both of them were shocked. In the sky, an old man was floating there, and his eyes were filled with displeasure. He shouted, Both of you are cultivation imparting elders. How can you fight to the death in front of so many disciples? Do you want the younger disciples to laugh at you? Elder Wang, This Lu Ming used despicable means to kill Duanmu Ju and the others. He must be punished. I suggest that he be stripped of his first place. Duanmu Jin cupped his fists and said to the silver-robed elder in the sky, He, Duanmu Jin, which eye of yours saw me using despicable means to kill Duanmu Ju and the others? How dare you say that you haven't been living for so long? Since he was already enemies with the Duanmu family, Lu Ming didn't have the slightest fear. He could say whatever he wanted and scold them to his heart's content. Moreover, he was sure that the silver-robed elder and Xie Kuang wouldn't let anything happen to him. How dare you? How dare you? You have no respect for your seniors. Duanmu Jin shouted, and the fat on his body shook violently. He was so angry that he wanted to slap Lu Ming into meat paste. Duanmu Jin, what are you shouting for? Just say it if you want to go back on your words. You slandered a new genius disciple for just 30 crystals. This is the first time I've seen someone like you. Xie Kuang seized the opportunity and mocked. You. Duanmu Jin was so angry that he almost vomited blood. His chest rose and fell rapidly, and his fat face turned red. Nearby, the others were watching with their mouths agape. Even geniuses like Huang Yu and Xie Hong looked at Lu Ming in a different light. Their identities were extraordinary, but even they didn't dare to scold an elder of the Duanmu family in public. This Lu Ming was simply lawless. After taking a few deep breaths, Duanmu Jin finally calmed down. He cupped his fist towards the silver-robed elder and said, Elder Wang, I'm sure that this Lu Ming must have used despicable means to obtain so many iron tokens. If he gets first place, I'm afraid that the other new disciples won't be convinced. I suggest that we test his strength. If his strength is passable, then I'll admit that he's the first place. No, Elder Wang. Since ancient times, the newcomer's trial has always been based on the score. There's never any restriction on how one obtains the iron tokens. Xie Kuang quickly said. Duanmu Jin sneered and said, Xie Kuang, don't forget that the previous newcomer's strength was recognized. Even if they were lucky, their strength was still not to be underestimated. But this Lu Ming, where did he come from? What ability does he have? His words were filled with contempt. Oh? The silver-robed elder thought for a while and said, Duanmu Jin, how do you want to test him? Very simple. Duanmu Tao, come out. Duanmu Jin waved his hand and said. Immediately, a young man walked out from the group of old disciples. Duanmu Jin pointed at the young man and said, This time, among the new disciples, the strongest one is a fourth-layer martial master. Duanmu Tao's cultivation is also at the fourth-layer martial master. As long as Lu Ming defeats Duanmu Tao, I'll admit that Lu Ming is the first place. Otherwise, I suggest that Lu Ming's first place be revoked. Xie Kuang's expression changed and said, I object. This Duanmu Tao has been in the sect for 3 years. Although his cultivation is only at the fourth-layer martial master, he has been cultivating for 3 years. How can a new disciple compare to him? This battle is unfair. What? If you don't have the strength, then say so. It's not that easy to become the newcomer's king. Duanmu Jin sneered. All right, I agree. Chapter 49. Lu Ming stepped forward with a faint smile on his face. Xie Kuang's expression changed again. Lu Ming, don't be impulsive. It was rare for the Vermilion Bird Courtyard to obtain the title of the best newcomer king this time. Their reputation would definitely soar in the future. The sect would also give more resources to the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. He could not bear to see Lu Ming lose the ranking due to a moment of impulse. Lu Ming smiled and said to Xie Kuang, Elder Xie, don't worry. He's just a disciple of the Duanmu family who has cultivated for a few years. What can he do? Then he said to Duanmu Jin, Duanmu Jin, I agree. Good. Seeing Lu Ming agree, Duanmu Jin was overjoyed. He cupped his fists and said to the silver-gowned elder, Elder Wang, Lu Ming has agreed. Please allow it. Elder Wang nodded and said, Good. Since it's like this, we'll do as you say. Thank you, Elder Wang. Duanmu Jin barely suppressed the joy in his heart. He looked at Duanmu Tao and said, Duanmu Tao, do you understand? Lu Ming is a candidate for the newcomer king. His talent is very high. You have to do your best, understand? Understood. Don't worry, Elder Jean. There was a sinister smile at the corners of Duanmu Tao's lips. He looked at Lu Ming and said, Lu Ming, it's not too late for you to admit defeat now. When we fight later, the saber and sword have no eyes. If you get hurt, don't blame me for not reminding you. Duanmu Jin retreated a dozen meters and said, Duanmu Tao, just do your best. My Mystic Essence Sword Sect's newcomer king needs real talent, not trash who relies on luck. You don't have a chance now. Duanmu Tao smiled sinisterly. He suddenly moved and unsheathed his sword, slashing towards Lu Ming. Shua, shua. The sword flashed in midair and 9 sword flowers appeared. Each flower was like a plum blossom, enveloping Lu Ming's body. This is a yellow rank upper-level martial skill, Heavenly Plum Sword Art. Duanmu Tao has cultivated it for many years and has already reached the 4th level. The eyes of the Azure Dragon Hall's imparting elder lit up. That's right, this Duanmu Tao's cultivation isn't very high, but his comprehension of martial skills is pretty good. To be able to cultivate a high-level yellow-level martial skill to such a level in just a few years, that's quite rare. Duanmu Jin really has a good plan for Duanmu Tao to fight. I'm afraid that among this batch of newcomers, no one is a match for Duanmu Tao. The elder of the Black Tortoise Academy said, Despicable. Xia Kuang clenched his fists, his eyes filled with worry. Hee. Duanmu Jin sneered. But at this time, Lu Ming's face also had a sneer. His body was motionless. With a clang, a sword light burst out like lightning. Fast, too fast. In a flash, it was right in front of Duanmu Tao's face. The cold sword edge made Duanmu Tao's heart shiver. Retreat. Without the slightest hesitation, Duanmu Tao frantically retreated, and that whatever sword flower also disappeared without a trace. The smile on Duanmu Jin's face froze. What a fast sword. This is also a high-grade yellow-level sword art. The elder of the Azure Dragon Academy's face changed. That's right. This is a high-grade yellow-level sword art, flowing light sword art. I estimate that Lu Ming has at least cultivated it to the 4th level, or even the 5th level. The elder of the Black Tortoise Academy said, his eyes flashing. Xia Kuang, on the other hand, was ecstatic. Lu Ming was just a beginner. He did not expect his attainment in martial arts to be so high. Duanmu Tao, this is the martial arts that you've been cultivating for years? After years of hard work, you're only at this level. Come out and make a fool of yourself. Lu Ming said with a faint smile. Damn it, take another move from me. Duanmu Tao roared. His body swayed, bringing out a series of afterimages as he attacked Lu Ming. A powerful sword chi burst out from the body of the sword. He slashed out 7 or 8 sword chi at Lu Ming. So what if his sword art was fast? He wanted to use his powerful true chi to suppress Lu Ming. I don't want to play with you anymore. Lu Ming muttered and suddenly slashed out with his long sword. Chi. A sword chi that was even sharper than Duanmu Tao's swept out. Lu Ming had broken through to the 3rd level of the martial master realm. The quality of his true chi was already above Duanmu Tao's. With a few puffs, Duanmu Tao's sword chi was destroyed. Then, Lu Ming punched out with his left hand. Flame Dragon Fist. This punch directly landed on Duanmu Tao's dantian. Duanmu Tao screamed as his body flew backwards and fell heavily to the ground. His face was pale as he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Silence. The entire arena fell into silence. 2 moves, from start to finish, Lu Ming had defeated Duanmu Tao in just 2 moves. With this kind of battle strength, was he still a new disciple? My cyclone, my cultivation. Lu Ming, you crippled my cultivation? Duanmu Tao let out a mournful scream. That punch just now, the powerful fist force had already destroyed the cyclone in Duanmu Tao's dania. Boom. Lu Ming. Duanmu Jin exuded a cold, murderous intent. He was about to dash toward Lu Ming. However, Xia Kuang took a step forward and blocked in front of Duanmu Jin. Xia Kuang, get out of my way. I'm going to cripple this little bastard. He actually used such a heavy hand in a sparring match. His character is low. He deserves to be killed. Duanmu Jin shouted. Duanmu Jin, when it comes to fighting, swords have no eyes. This is what Duanmu Tao said himself. I was able to control my strength and not kill him. It's fine if you don't thank me, But you're saying my character is low. I think the one with a low character is you. Lu Ming shouted. Little bastard, die. Duanmu Jin could no longer hold it in. His face turned red, and he almost suffered internal injuries. Enough. The silver-robed elder waved his hand, and a powerful force emerged. Xia Kuang and Duanmu Jin both retreated. Elder Wang, you have to help Duanmu Tao. Duanmu Jin shouted. Elder Wang frowned and said, Duanmu Jin, that's enough. When two people fight, swords have no eyes. Injuries are unavoidable. Don't be unreasonable. The silver-robed elders who were in charge of supervising didn't belong to any of the four great sections. They were directly sent by the sect master to ensure fairness and not be biased towards any of the four great sections. When he saw Lu Ming's talent and strength, he was quite happy. After all, the Mystic Essence Sword Sect had another genius. However, Duanmu Jin wanted to kill Lu Ming for his own selfish desires. This already made him unhappy. This battle has also proven Lu Ming's strength. Now that almost everyone has come out, I announce that the first place is Lu Ming. Elder Wang announced. Damn it. Duanmu Jin's face was extremely ugly. He knew that he couldn't deal with Lu Ming today. Lu Ming, let's see how long you can be arrogant. Offending my Duanmu family will not end well. Duanmu Jin roared in his heart. Not far away, Huang Yu, Xia Hong, and the rest looked at Lu Ming with complicated expressions. Lu Ming's strength was beyond their expectations. They concluded that Duanmu Ju must have died in Lu Ming's hands. They secretly rejoiced that they didn't catch up with Lu Ming in the secluded night mountain range. Otherwise, they would be the ones dead. Duanmu Jin, 30 spiritual crystals. Handed over. At this moment, Xia Kuang walked in front of Duanmu Jin and sneered. Kakik. Duanmu Jin gritted his teeth, but in front of everyone, he couldn't act shamelessly. He took out 30 spiritual crystals and handed it over to Xia Kuang. Haha. Xia Kuang laughed heartily. After a while, the time was up and Elder Wang began to announce the rankings. Second place, Huang Yu. Third place, Xia Hong. The rankings were announced one by one. Feng Wu obtained the 22nd place with 131 points. After the rankings were announced, Elder Wang continued, Well, this year's trial for new disciples has come to an end. Those who have obtained rewards will be awarded together when you return to the sect and apply for the sect's identity jade token. Everyone is dismissed. Chapter 50. In the training field of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, all the new disciples had gathered. Above them, other than Elder Xia Kuang, there were several other elders. There was even a silver-robed elder from the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Every elder had a smile on their faces. Now, I will issue you your identity jade token. This jade token not only contains your basic information, but also your sect's contribution points. When you need contribution points, you can use this jade token to make a transaction. A jade token appeared in the silver-robed elder's hand. He continued, this time, although our Vermilion Bird Courtyard's overall results were not good, Lu Ming won the title of Newcomer King. You should know that our Vermilion Bird Courtyard hasn't had a newcomer king in 8 years. This is our Vermilion Bird Courtyard's honor. Therefore, this time, not only will the first place be rewarded with 5,000 contribution points and a spirit-condensing fruit, our Vermilion Bird Courtyard will also add 2,000 contribution points. Lu Ming, come and receive your reward. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes turned to Lu Ming. Their eyes were filled with envy, jealousy, and so on. Among them, Yin Kai's eyes were extremely cold. His eyes were constantly moving, and no one knew what he was thinking. Lu Ming walked forward and received the jade token and a jade box. Lu Ming's consciousness sank into the jade token, and a row of words appeared on the jade token. Lu Ming, 15 years old, from Windfire City, Mystic Essence Sword Sect, Vermilion Bird Courtyard's Bronze Disciple. Residence, Courtyard 29, Room 1. Contribution points, 7,000. The information inside was very comprehensive. Even the residence was marked. And the jade box contained the spirit-condensing fruit. Thank you, Elder. Lu Ming cupped his fists and bowed, then retreated. Next, it was time for the others to receive their jade tokens. After receiving their tokens, everyone dispersed. Lu Ming headed towards the Vermilion Bird Peak. The Vermilion Bird Peak was very majestic. It towered into the clouds and was very wide. On the peak, ancient trees formed a forest. Birds chirped and flowers bloomed. It was like a paradise on earth. Halfway up the mountain, a number of unique courtyards were built. These courtyards were the dormitories of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard's disciples. What a dense heaven and earth spirit chi. The heaven and earth spirit chi here is several times denser than the odd job disciple district. No wonder everyone wants to become a bronze rank disciple. It's said that the silver rank disciples, elders, and headmasters all live near the top of the mountain. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth there is richer than here. Lu Ming thought as he walked. The doors of these courtyards were marked with numbers. Soon, Lu Ming found courtyard 29. The courtyard was quite spacious. There was a courtyard inside, which was convenient for cultivating martial skills. There were also 3 rooms. The room in the middle was labeled Room 1. The other 2 rooms were Room 2 and Room 3. Lu Ming walked straight into Room 1. The room was very simple. There was only a bed and a table. There was a small booklet on the table that introduced the basic information of the mystic Yuan sword sect. Of course, it also introduced the Burning Sun Empire. Lu Ming glanced at it and put it away. At this time, footsteps came from outside. Lu Ming walked out of the room. A teenager around 15 or 16 years old walked in. He was tall and sturdy, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He carried a sword wider than a palm on his back. When he saw Lu Ming, he was stunned for a moment. Then, he was overjoyed and said, "Senior brother Lu Ming, you're also assigned to Courtyard 29? Haha, that's great. Then we'll be roommates from now on." The burly teenager laughed. Lu Ming smiled and said, "Brother, you're too polite. How should I address you?" "My name is Pang Shi. I'm a hunter from Fuhai City." The burly teenager hurriedly introduced himself with enthusiasm. After a simple introduction, Lu Ming understood that Pang Shi was the son of a hunter family in Fuhai City. Because of his natural strength and his bloodline awakening at the age of 14, his family sent him to the mystic Yuan sword sect to participate in the assessment. Not only did he pass, but he also became a bronze disciple. Looking at this young hunter, Lu Ming felt that his talent was not simple. Otherwise, an ordinary hunter would not have passed the assessment and completed the trial so easily. "I'll need senior brother Lu Ming's guidance in the future. I'm a little stupid." Pang Shi scratched his head and said, "Ask him to guide you? I think you'd better follow me in the future." At this time, a handsome young man in a green robe walked into the courtyard. The young man's skin was fair, and his eyes were long and narrow. He was tall and thin, and there was an undisguised arrogance between his eyebrows. After the green-robed young man walked in, he looked at Lu Ming and sneered. "Lu Ming, remember, my name is Hua Qi. Although you've won the Newcomer King title, it's nothing. I've just entered the mystic Yuan sword sect. In a year, I'll surpass you." Lovestruck? What a strange name. Pang Shi ignored the other content and said in surprise. Suddenly, the green-robed young man's face froze and he roared, "You big guy, idiot! What nonsense are you talking about? My name is Hua Qi, not Lovestruck." "Still Lovestruck, senior brother Lu Ming. Isn't that right?" Pang Shi scratched his head and asked in bewilderment. Lu Ming could not help laughing and said, "Pang Shi, you're right. I also heard that it's Lovestruck. You two country bumpkins, it's useless to rely on your mouths. Just wait and see. Soon, my name will be famous in the mystic Yuan sword sect and even the entire Blazing Sun Empire." Hua Qi's eyes were full of confidence. He then snorted and ignored Lu Ming and Pang Shi as he walked into room number 2. Lu Ming smiled and said goodbye to Pang Shi before returning to his room. After returning to his room, Lu Ming began to cultivate the true dragon fighting technique. Ever since he had broken through to the martial master realm, Lu Ming had been constantly devouring blood essence, and his cultivation had soared. Now, his foundation was a little unstable and his genuine chi was full of impurities. He had to stop and spend time to consolidate and condense it. An unstable foundation was a huge problem. It would affect one's future cultivation. In the end, his cultivation would even stop and it would be difficult to improve. Even with the spirit-devouring bug bloodline, it was useless to devour blood essence. Circulating the true dragon fighting technique, the vortex in his dantian spun continuously, forming tiny dragon-shaped genuine chi that flowed through his meridians and constantly refined the impurities in his genuine chi. 6 hours later, Lu Ming opened his eyes. At this rate, I should be able to completely consolidate my cultivation in about 10 days. Then, it's time to cultivate the second level of the true dragon fighting technique. Once I reach the martial master realm, my advantage will weaken. As long as I cultivate the true dragon fighting technique to the second level, my strength will increase greatly. I've already collected 2 of the 3 most important materials for the second level of the true dragon fighting technique. I'm only missing the blood smoke stone. I'll go to the contribution hall in 2 days to see if there are any blood smoke stones there. Lu Ming kept pondering in his heart. Chapter 51. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. Lu Ming, get out here. On this day, Lu Ming was cultivating. Suddenly, a loud roar came from outside. Ning Feng? Lu Ming remembered this voice very clearly. It was the senior disciple who had deliberately caused trouble for him when he had just entered the sect. This Ning Feng sent someone to kill me during the trial. I didn't look for you, but you came looking for me first. A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He got up and walked out of the door. When he walked out of the door, he saw Peng Shi and Hua Qi also walking out of their rooms. They were obviously alarmed. Senior brother Lu, what's going on? Peng Shi showed a trace of worry. Don't worry. Lu Ming smiled. Lu Ming, get out here. Ning Feng's voice rang out again. His voice rumbled and spread far and wide. Creak. Lu Ming opened the door of the courtyard and walked out. Outside the courtyard stood 7 or 8 young men. The one in the lead was Ning Feng, and standing beside Ning Feng was actually Yin Kai. As for the others, each of them had a strong aura. They were obviously senior disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Lu Ming, you finally came out. I thought you were going to be a coward. Ning Feng looked coldly at Lu Ming. Deep in his eyes, there was a flash of killing intent. This Lu Ming was beyond his expectations. During the newcomer's trial, he had arranged for a martial master expert and the Duanmu family to cooperate with him to kill Lu Ming. Under such circumstances, Lu Ming was not killed. Lu Ming even obtained the title of newcomer king. This was simply unbelievable. When he heard the news, he was so shocked that he jumped up. Lu Ming's talent was beyond his imagination. He had to nip it in the bud. Coward? Ning Feng, do you think you're worthy? Lu Ming looked indifferently at Ning Feng. Haha. Lu Ming, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you obtained the title of newcomer king. In my eyes, you're nothing. Moreover, you obtained the title of newcomer king through despicable means. Lu Ming, do you know? You've committed a great crime. Kneel down and accept your punishment. Ning Feng shouted. At this moment, the entire area had been alarmed. One figure after another walked out of the courtyards. There were even senior disciples. Everyone looked over and discussed fervently. I don't know. But no wonder. Ning Feng was aggressive, but Lu Ming wasn't afraid at all. Ning Feng, you don't have to slander me. What crime did I commit? What crime? Let me ask you, during the trial, the 500-point iron plate was originally obtained by junior brother Yin Kai. However, for your own selfish desires, you colluded with the disciples of the other courtyards to intercept junior brother Yin Kai midway, causing junior brother Yin Kai to painfully lose his 500-point iron plate. Originally, the position of newcomer king was junior brother Yin Kai's. Not only that, in order to obtain the 500-point iron token, you actually killed my Vermilion Bird Courtyard's genius disciple, Yuanling. Such behavior is heinous and deserves 1,000 deaths. Now, kneel down and accept your punishment. Ning Feng roared, his aura threatening. This Ning Feng really knows how to slander. Isn't that so? Not far away, some senior disciples were discussing. There was a rule in the Mystic Essence Sword sect that disciples were not allowed to kill each other. But there were times and places where there were exceptions. For example, the life and death arena, or the newcomer trial. The newcomer trial had been passed down in the mystic essence sword sect for a long time. In fact, everyone knew that the trial was to test one's overall ability. In the trial, any method could be used, including killing. But this was an unspoken rule that couldn't be said out loud. If it was said out loud, it would be the crime of killing a fellow disciple. But which newcomer trial didn't kill? Impossible. This was clearly a case of, if you want to condemn someone, there's no need to worry about the pretext. Ningfeng, you're here to say this? You're using this idiotic reason? I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. After speaking, Lu Ming turned around and walked inside. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with Ningfeng. Damn it. Lu Ming's attitude made Ningfeng grit his teeth and roared, Lu Ming, how dare you? Do you still have the sect's rules in your eyes? Kneel down. Swish. Ningfeng's palm struck towards Lu Ming. If this palm hit, Lu Ming would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. Senior brother Lu Ming, be careful, Peng Shi reminded. Boom. At the critical moment, Lu Ming quickly turned around and blasted out the flame dragon fist. Bang. Lu Ming's fist collided with Ningfeng's palm. With a loud bang, Lu Ming took 5 steps back. His body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Newcomer King, you're just a piece of trash. Today, I'll cripple you and slowly interrogate you. Ningfeng's face was cold and disdainful. He took a step forward and struck another palm at Lu Ming. You want to cripple me? I'll make you pay a painful price. Lu Ming held the hilt of his sword and his eyes flashed with a ruthless light. He planned to activate his bloodline and make Ningfeng pay the price even if he had to take a hit from Ningfeng. Stop. But at this moment, a delicate shout sounded out. A figure rushed over like lightning, and a strong palm wind struck towards Ningfeng. The sharpness of the palm wind was not any weaker than Ningfeng's. Helpless, Ningfeng could only turn around and face the attack. Bang! As the two palms collided, Ningfeng's body swayed slightly. Yuan Hui, it's you? Why are you blocking me? Seeing who it was, Ningfeng's face changed. Lu Ming was also a little surprised. The one who attacked was a young woman around 18 or 19 years old. She was quite beautiful, but Lu Ming didn't know her, so why did she help him? But immediately he understood. Another figure flew over. It was Feng Wu. Lu Ming, are you all right? Don't worry, senior sister Yuan is one of Sister Mulin's people. She won't let Ningfeng do whatever he wants. Feng Wu looked at Lu Ming with a look of concern in his eyes. I'm fine. Lu Ming laughed. At this time, Yuan Hui said, Ningfeng, I might as well tell you, Lu Ming was introduced by Elder Mulin's. Now, you know why I blocked you. What? Elder Mulin's? When Ningfeng heard Mulin's name, his face immediately became serious. At the side, Yin Kai's face also darkened. How can this Lu Ming be so lucky? Damn it. Yin Kai clenched his teeth. Originally, when he saw Lu Ming being injured by Ningfeng, he was secretly happy, but he didn't expect Yuan Hui to appear. Got it, hurry up and leave. Yuan Hui stared at Ningfeng and said. Chapter 52. Ningfeng, if you want to deal with me, do you need to use such a lowly reason? Do you want us to go find the law enforcement elder and see if I'm guilty or not? Lu Ming looked at Ningfeng with disdain and said, Why would I need to find the law enforcement elder for such a small matter? Ningfeng sneered. Senior apprentice brother Ning, this is where you are wrong. I am also a new disciple and have just participated in the smelting trial. During the smelting trial, killing each other is very normal. I saw a senior apprentice brother being killed by a person from the Duanmu clan. Why didn't senior apprentice brother Ning bring some people to capture that Duanmu clan disciple? At this moment, Peng Shi walked out, rubbed his head, and said with a simple and honest face, That's right, Ningfeng, you're so righteous. Go and capture the people of the Duanmu family. You only know how to shout here. Don't you find it embarrassing? Feng Wu stood beside Lu Ming and shouted. This caused Ningfeng's face to turn ugly. How was it possible for him to capture a disciple of the Duanmu family? He immediately looked at Peng Shi unkindly and berated. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like that? Scram to the side. Then, He looked at Ruan Hui and shouted, "Ruan Hui, get out of my way. Ning Feng, if you have the ability, then defeat me. Otherwise, don't even think about touching a single hair on Lu Ming's head." Ruan Hui's attitude was very firm. Ruan Hui's attitude was so resolute that it caused Ning Feng's face to darken. He then looked at Lu Ming and said, "Lu Ming, what kind of newcomer king are you? Do you only know how to hide behind a woman? Ning Feng, you've been in the sect for 4 or 5 years, right? How about this? You and Lu Ming will fight in a year's time. How about it?" Ruan Hui said, "Senior Sister Ruan, why do you need a year? 1 month is enough." Lu Ming took a step forward and faced Ning Feng, saying, "Ning Feng, I am challenging you right now. 1 month later, on the Vermilion Bird stage, a life and death battle, do you dare?" Lu Ming's clear voice, which spread far and wide, caused an uproar. What? Lu Ming wants to challenge Ning Feng? And a month later, isn't he courting death? Ning Feng has already reached the peak of the 6th level of the Martial Master Realm. It is said that he is only a step away from the 7th level of the Martial Master Realm. Furthermore, he has bitterly cultivated a high-grade yellow rank martial skill for nearly 5 years and has already reached the 5th level, the realm of perfection. This Lu Ming actually dares to challenge Ning Feng in a month? That's right. This Lu Ming is at most a 4th-grade martial master. It's impossible for him to defeat Ning Feng in a month. He's too arrogant. I think he's blindly confident after receiving the title of Newcomer King. You overestimate yourself. Most of the people who were discussing this were the older disciples. They all felt that Lu Ming was too arrogant. Ning Feng's eyes flashed, revealing a trace of joy as he said, "Lu Ming, you want to challenge me in a month?" "That's right. Do you dare?" Lu Ming said, "Ha ha ha. What's there to be afraid of? I'll take it." Ning Feng laughed. With Lu Ming's talent, perhaps surpassing him in a year's time wouldn't be a problem. However, it was impossible for him to fight him in a month's time. Lu Ming was courting death. Since he was blocked by Ruan Hua today, he might as well agree first. He wanted to kill Lu Ming in front of everyone in a month's time. The thought of killing a newcomer king made him incomparably excited. "Lu Ming, I hope that you won't hide like a turtle in a month's time." Ning Feng said, "These words are exactly what I wanted to give you." Lu Ming said, "Humph, it's useless to rely on your mouth. Let's go." Ning Feng waved his hand and left with all the older disciples. "Lu Ming, you're too impulsive. How can you challenge Ning Feng in a month's time?" After Ning Feng and the rest left, Feng Wu said worriedly, "That's right. You can agree to fight him in a year's time, or even half a year. With me here, Ning Feng won't be able to do anything to you today." Ruan Hui frowned and said. She also felt that Lu Ming was too arrogant. She didn't like this personality. Sooner or later, she would suffer a great loss. Lu Ming smiled and said, "It's fine, but I still have to thank Senior Sister Ruan for her help today. You don't have to thank me. I'm also looking at Elder Mulin's. I hope you can take care of yourself." With that, Ruan Hui turned and left. "Lu Ming, then you should cultivate well during this period of time. If you need any help, feel free to find me," Feng Wu said. Lu Ming nodded and said, "Definitely, then I'll be leaving first." Feng Wu glanced at Lu Ming, then left as well. "Senior brother Lu Ming, I believe you will definitely win." Pang Shi walked over and said, "How could it be that easy to win against Ning Feng? Let me tell you, Ning Feng's cultivation is said to have already reached the peak of the 6th level of the Martial Master, and his father is one of the chief elders of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard." Hua Qi said coldly from the side. Lu Ming smiled slightly. This Hua Qi was a person with a cold face but a warm heart. This was a reminder to him. "I believe in Senior Brother Lu Ming. Senior Brother Lu Ming is the newcomer king." Pang Shi grinned. "Naive." Hua Qi shook his head and walked back to the courtyard. "Peak of the 6th level of the Martial Master Realm?" Lu Ming whispered, his eyes revealing a determined look. After informing Pang Shi, he went down the Vermilion Bird Peak and headed towards the Contribution Hall of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. The Contribution Hall of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect was close to the center of the 4 great academies. It was the most prosperous place in the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. That place was the center of the 4 great academies. The Chelan courtyard was in this area, as well as the contribution hall and the mission hall. Lu Ming planned to go to the contribution hall to see if there were any blood smoke stones to exchange for. Half an hour later, Lu Ming arrived at the contribution hall. The contribution hall covered an area of a few hundred mu. It was very spacious and bustling with people coming and going. There were many small rooms built around the main hall. Lu Ming would only allow someone to enter when he saw someone walk out. Every time someone entered, a sign with the words "occupied" would appear at the door of the room. This was to protect the privacy of the disciples. After all, the items that some people exchange for might be very precious. If someone with ulterior motives found out, it might be disadvantageous to the disciple who exchanged for it. Lu Ming looked around for a while and saw someone walking out of a room. Lu Ming quickly walked into the room. The room wasn't big. There was a table and a few chairs. There was a counter on one side, and a white-haired old man was sitting at the counter. "Little brother, do you want to exchange for contribution points? Or do you want to exchange for contribution points?" When the old man saw Lu Ming, he asked with a smile, "Senior, I want to ask if there are any blood smoke stones here?" Lu Ming asked as he looked at the old man with anticipation. "Blood smoke stone? You want to exchange for a blood smoke stone?" The old man raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise, "Could it be that there weren't any?" Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "Senior, could it be that there aren't any blood smoke stones to exchange for?" "Yes, of course there are. However, the price of blood smoke stones isn't cheap. One gene of blood smoke stone requires 3,000 contribution points." The old man said, "What? 3,000 contribution points?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.